What are you doing here?
How could you? What about our marriage? What about our children?
I found myself staring at my phone that Tuesday afternoon in October, watching the little typing dots appear and disappear on Vivian's Messenger app, not knowing that in exactly 47 minutes, my entire world would shatter in the most unexpected way possible. My name is Paul, and I'm a consultant working primarily with small businesses in Grand Rapids. I've built my practice from the ground up over the past 8 years, helping local entrepreneurs navigate financial planning, operational efficiency, and growth strategies. It's rewarding work, seeing people's dreams turn into successful ventures. Vivian and I had been married for 7 years. She owned a bakery downtown that had become quite successful over the past few years. The place was called Sweet Vivian's, and it had developed a loyal following for its artisan breads and custom cakes. We had 2 kids, Emma, who was 5, and little Jacob, who had just turned 3. Emma had Vivian's dark hair and my green eyes, while Jacob was all Vivian, dark eyes, olive skin, and a smile that could melt your heart. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family. From the inside, well, I thought we were pretty solid too. That morning had been normal. Vivian kissed me goodbye before heading to the bakery at 5 a.m., like she always did. She was a morning person, always had been, which worked well for the bakery business. I got the kids ready for daycare, made them breakfast. Emma wanted pancakes, Jacob just wanted cereal. Went to my home office and started reviewing financial projections for a client who was considering opening a second location. Nothing seemed off. Nothing at all. Vivian had been her usual self, maybe a bit distracted, but she often was when she had big orders to fill. Around 2 p.m., I realized I'd left an important contract at Vivian's bakery the previous day when I'd stopped by to grab lunch. I needed it for a 4 o'clock call with a potential client, so I decided to swing by and pick it up. The bakery closed at 3 on Tuesdays for deep cleaning, but Vivian would still be there doing inventory and preparing orders for the next day. I'd probably interrupted her inventory 100 times over the years. She never minded. I parked behind the building like I usually did and used my key to enter through the back door. The main lights were off, but I could see the glow from the office in the back. The smell of fresh bread still lingered in the air, mixed with vanilla and cinnamon. I heard voices, Vivian's laugh, that specific laugh she had that was pure joy, the one I hadn't heard directed at me in months, if I was being honest. And a man's voice I didn't recognize. My stomach tightened. I moved quietly through the kitchen area toward the office, my footsteps silent on the tile floor. The door was partially open, and what I saw made my blood run cold. "Howard, we can't keep doing this," Vivian was saying, but she was laughing. "Paul could show up anytime." "You always say that, but he never does," the male voice responded. "Besides, you said Tuesday afternoons were safe. He's always busy with clients." I pushed the door open. The hinges creaked slightly. Vivian was sitting on her desk, her legs wrapped around a man I'd never seen before. His hands were on her waist, her fingers tangled in his hair. They both froze when they saw me, like deer caught in headlights. "Paul!" Vivian jumped off the desk, so fast she nearly knocked over her coffee mug. "This isn't what it looks like." I finished for her, my voice deadly calm. I was surprised by how steady I sounded, when inside I felt like I was falling apart. "Really? Because it looks like my wife has her legs wrapped around another man in her office. So please enlighten me. What exactly is this?" The man, Howard apparently, stepped back, his hands raised like I was going to hit him. Maybe I should have wanted to, but I just felt numb. "Look, man, I didn't know she was." "Don't you dare lie to me." I cut him off. "She just said my name. You knew exactly who I was. You knew she had a husband waiting at home. You knew she had children." Vivian's face had gone completely white. Her hands were shaking. "Paul, please let me explain." "Explain?" I felt something cold settle in my chest, like ice water replacing my blood. "How long?" She didn't answer. She just stood there, looking at the floor. "How long, Vivian?" My voice echoed in the small office. 6 months, she whispered. 6 months. Half a year. While I'd been taking care of our kids, supporting her business, planning our future, thinking about maybe trying for a 3rd child like she'd mentioned wanting. 6 months of lies. 6 months of Tuesday afternoons, and probably other days too. 6 months of coming home to me and our children after being with him. "Where did you meet him?" I asked, my voice now eerily quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before a storm. "Does it matter?" she said weakly, finally looking up at me with tears in her eyes. "Where?" "Tinder," Howard answered when Vivian stayed silent. He at least had the decency to look ashamed. I didn't know she was married at first. The profile didn't say. Get out, I told him, my voice like steel. Get out right now, before I do something I'll regret. And trust me, I'm very close to that line. He grabbed his jacket from the back of a chair and practically ran out the back door. I heard his car start up moments later and the squeal of tires as he left. I turned back to Vivian. She was crying now, mascara running down her face in black streaks. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. Paul, please. I love you. I love our family. This was just what? A mistake? For 6 months? That's not a mistake, Vivian. That's a choice. A choice you made every single day for half a year. I don't know why I did it, she sobbed, her whole body shaking. I was confused. The bakery was stressful, and you were always busy with work, and Howard he paid attention to me. He made me feel alive again. I pay attention to you, I said, but even as I said it, I wondered if I had. Had I been too focused on my clients? Too tired when I got home? Too comfortable in our routine? No. I stopped that thought immediately. This wasn't on me. This was her choice. Her betrayal. I wasn't perfect, but I'd never betrayed her trust like this. Was he the only one? I asked, dreading the answer. Yes. I swear, just Howard. Nobody else, I promise. I believed her on that, at least. Vivian was a terrible liar, and she'd already admitted to the affair. If there had been others, she probably would have confessed to that too in her panic. I need you to understand something, I said, looking her directly in the eyes. This marriage is over. Done. Finished. I want you to move out. Tonight. I don't want you in our home when I bring the kids back. Paul, no. The kids. The kids will be fine. Better than being raised in a house full of lies and resentment. Better than growing up thinking this is what marriage looks like. Where will I go? I don't care. Go to Howard's. Go to your sister's. Go anywhere. But you're not staying in our apartment. You lost that right when you decided to destroy our family. She tried to argue, tried to plead, told me I was being unreasonable, that we should talk about this, that we could go to counseling. But I was done. I grabbed my contract from her desk and left, her sobs following me out of the building. The next few hours were a blur. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, just breathing, trying to process what had just happened. Then I called my lawyer friend Carl, who worked in family law. We'd gone to college together, and I trusted him completely. I explained everything, my voice mechanical, detached. He listened without interrupting. Paul, I'm so sorry, he said when I finished. But you need to document everything, secure our finances, and file for divorce immediately. Don't wait. Strike while the iron is hot. Carl, I don't know if I can. Yes, you can. You have to. For your kids. For yourself. Trust me on this. I've seen too many people wait and end up getting screwed in the divorce. Don't be one of them. I hadn't even thought about the financial implications. We had a joint account for household expenses, but I also had a personal account from before we got married that I'd kept separate. Most of my consulting income went there. I immediately transferred everything except what was needed for the month's bills to a new account that only I had access to. Then I called my sister Miranda. She lived 20 minutes away and had never really warmed to Vivian, though she'd never said why. Now I wondered if she'd seen something I hadn't, some sign that I'd been too blind to notice. I'm coming over, she said immediately when I told her what happened. Her voice was fierce, protective. Have you told the kids yet? Not yet. I don't even know what to say. How do you tell a 5-year-old that mommy isn't going to live with us anymore? We'll figure it out together. I'm leaving now. I picked up the kids from daycare, forcing myself to smile, to act normal. Emma chattered about her day, about the pictures she'd drawn in art class. Jacob fell asleep in his car seat. They had no idea their world was about to change forever. By the time Vivian came home that evening, I had already packed her essentials, clothes, toiletries, important documents. Miranda was there with me, and I'd asked my friend Robin to come over too. Robin was a paralegal and had helped me document everything. I wanted witnesses for everything that happened next. Vivian looked shocked when she saw the suitcases by the door. Paul, you can't be serious. Where are the kids? At my parents'. And yes, I'm completely serious. You have 2 choices. Leave now, voluntarily, or I call the police and tell them you're trespassing. This is my home. You can't just kick me out. Actually, Carl said, stepping out from the kitchen where he'd been waiting. Legally, Paul can ask you to leave the marital residence pending divorce proceedings, especially given the circumstances of adultery. Michigan law is very clear on this. I'd recommend you comply to avoid making this messier than it needs to be. Vivian looked between all of us, realization dawning on her face that I'd prepared for this, that this wasn't some impulsive reaction. You planned all this in just a few hours? When you're betrayed, you learn to move fast, I replied. You made your choice 6 months ago. I'm making mine now. She started crying again, the same tears that had probably worked on me 1,000 times before. But not anymore. Can I at least say goodbye to the kids? They're with my parents for tonight. You can see them with supervision until we work out custody arrangements. I'm not keeping them from you, but I'm also not leaving them alone with you until I know what kind of person you've become. Paul, please. Leave Vivian. There's nothing left to say. She grabbed her suitcases, fumbling with her keys, and left. Through the window, I watched her load them into her car. I later learned she went straight to Howard's apartment. They'd apparently been planning to be together anyway. I'd just accelerated their timeline. The next few weeks were hell. Telling Emma and Jacob that Mommy wouldn't be living with us anymore was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Emma cried and asked if it was her fault, if she'd been bad. I held her and promised her it had nothing to do with her, that Mommy and Daddy just couldn't live together anymore. Jacob was too young to really understand, but he kept asking when Mommy was coming home. Vivian tried to fight the divorce at first, claiming she wanted to work on our marriage, that the affair was over and she'd never see Howard again. She sent me long emails about how sorry she was, how she'd made a terrible mistake, how she'd do anything to fix this. But I had Carl file papers showing her admitted adultery, and her lawyer advised her that fighting would be expensive and futile given the evidence. The real battle came over assets. Vivian wanted to keep the bakery and split everything else 50-50, claiming that was fair. I had other plans. The bakery was started during our marriage with marital funds. Carl explained to her lawyer during one of our mediation sessions. Paul is entitled to half its value, or we can argue that since Vivian used marital time and resources to conduct an affair, she's violated the marital contract and should receive less. We have documentation that she used the bakery as a location for her affair, which could be considered misuse of marital assets. We settled after 2 months of negotiations. I got our apartment, the car, and 70% of our joint savings. Vivian kept the bakery, but had to buy out my share of its value, about $85,000, over 5 years with interest. The kids would primarily live with me, with Vivian getting them every other weekend and one weeknight. She'd pay reduced child support, given the custody arrangement. But that wasn't my revenge. No, that would have been too simple, too quick. You see, during the discovery process, I learned something interesting. Howard wasn't just some random guy Vivian met on Tinder. He was the husband of Paris, a woman who supplied flour and other baking goods to Vivian's bakery at wholesale prices. Paris owned a small distribution company her grandfather had started. It was one of the best supply companies in the region, known for quality ingredients at fair prices. I'd met Paris a few times at bakery events and holiday parties. Nice woman, professional, had 2 teenage kids with Howard. She always seemed proud of her business, talked about how her grandfather had built it from nothing. She had no idea her husband was having an affair with one of her clients. I struggled with whether to tell her. It wasn't really my business, and part of me just wanted to move on. But then I thought about how I'd felt finding out, how I wished someone had told me sooner, so I hadn't wasted 6 more months of my life. So I called her one evening after the kids were in bed. Paris, this is Paul, Vivian's husband. I need to talk to you about something important. Do you have a few minutes? When I told her, she was silent for a long moment. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Then, thank you for telling me. I had suspected something was going on, but I didn't know who. How long? 6 months that I know of. Another silence. I appreciate your honesty, Paul. This must have been difficult for you too. 2 weeks later, Paris filed for divorce from Howard and immediately terminated her business relationship with Vivian's bakery. Vivian had been getting supplies at nearly cost from Paris. It was one of the main reasons her bakery was so profitable compared to competitors. Without that arrangement, Vivian's costs increased by almost 30% overnight. She had to find new suppliers, and none of them offered the same quality at the same price point. But Paris wasn't done. She called every other supplier in the region and told them what happened. In the small business community of Grand Rapids, word spread fast. Vivian's bakery became known as the place where the owner broke up a marriage. Several other suppliers refused to work with her on principle. Some customers stopped coming once they heard the story. The local business association quietly distanced themselves from her. I didn't ask Paris to do any of this. She did it on her own form of justice. But I can't say I was sorry to watch it unfold. Meanwhile, Vivian and Howard moved in together into a small apartment on the east side of town. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, things weren't going well. Turns out the excitement of an affair doesn't translate well to real life when you're dealing with angry ex-spouses, business problems, and the judgment of your community. The sneaking around had been thrilling, but actually living together was different. Howard lost his job about a month after everything came out. He'd worked in marketing for a local firm, and when his boss, a religious man who valued family and had strong opinions about infidelity, found out about the affair, he was let go. They called it downsizing, but everyone knew the real reason. Vivian's bakery was struggling with the increased costs and decreased customer base. She had to let go of 2 employees. They were fighting constantly about money, about the divorce proceedings, about whose fault everything was. But here's the thing, they stayed together. Maybe out of stubbornness, maybe because they'd sacrificed too much to give up now. Maybe because they actually loved each other, though I doubted either of them really knew what love meant. I didn't know and didn't care. 3 months after our divorce was finalized, Vivian called me. Her voice sounded tired, defeated. "Paul, I need to talk to you about the kids." "What about them?" "I can't afford my current place anymore. Howard and I are moving to a smaller apartment across town. It's farther from their school, and honestly, it's not in a great neighborhood." "That sounds like a you problem, Vivian. I'm asking if we can adjust the custody arrangement. Maybe you could take them full-time, and I could have them 1 weekend a month instead of every other week. Just until I get back on my feet." I was silent, processing this. Part of me wanted to say yes immediately, more time with my kids, more stability for them. But another part wondered what this meant for them, for their relationship with their mother. "Why?" I asked finally. "Because I'm drowning, Paul," she admitted, her voice cracking. "The bakery is failing. I might have to close it. Howard can't find stable work, because word has gotten around. We're barely making rent. I can't give them the life they deserve right now. I can't even afford to take them to do fun things on my weekends. You should have thought about that before you cheated, before you destroyed our family for some excitement." "I know," she said quietly. "I know I ruined everything. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to think about what's best for Emma and Jacob. They deserve stability. They deserve a home where the electricity doesn't get shut off because I can't pay the bill." She was right about that, and I hated that she was using the kids as leverage, even if unintentionally. "I'll agree to modified custody, but I want it in writing through our lawyers. And you don't get to change it back when things get better for you. This is permanent unless there are major life changes." "Okay, whatever you want." We modified the agreement through Carl and her lawyer. I got full custody. Vivian got 1 weekend per month and alternating holidays. Child support was adjusted accordingly, though she could barely afford even the reduced amount of $400 a month. My life slowly returned to normal, or at least a new version of normal. I threw myself into work and parenting. My consulting business actually grew. Word got around about my professionalism and integrity, and several new clients came to me specifically because they'd heard my story and respected how I'd handled it. Miranda helped a lot with the kids, as did my parents. They moved their schedule around to help with pickup and drop-off. The kids adjusted better than I expected, especially once the routine became established. Emma especially seemed relieved to have a stable routine, to know what was happening day to day. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Howard at a gas station. He was pumping gas into an old sedan I didn't recognize, probably Vivian's car since I'd kept our SUV. He looked tired, older than when I'd first seen him. His hair was longer, unkempt. He'd lost weight. "Paul," he acknowledged me with a nod. "Howard." We stood there awkwardly for a moment, 2 men who'd never wanted to know each other, bound together by circumstances neither of us could change. Then he said, "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About everything. About your family. Are you though? You're still with her?" "Yeah," he said, his shoulders sagging. "I am. It's been hard, harder than either of us expected. But I love her. I know that doesn't make what we did okay. I know we hurt a lot of people. But it's the truth. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to tell him exactly what I thought of people who destroyed families, who snuck around behind their spouses' backs. But standing there, looking at this tired man who'd lost his job, his marriage, his reputation, All for a relationship that was clearly struggling under the weight of its own foundation. I felt nothing. Just emptiness where anger used to be. Maybe that was healing, or maybe that was just apathy. I hope it was worth it, I said finally and walked away. A year after the divorce, Vivian's bakery closed permanently. She couldn't keep up with the costs and the debt she'd accumulated trying to keep it afloat. The business she'd built from nothing, that had been her dream, was gone. She got a job working as a baker at a chain grocery store, still using her skills, but nothing like owning her own place had been. She was making $16 an hour doing the same work she used to oversee. She and Howard were still together, living in a cramped one-bedroom apartment in a rough neighborhood, both working jobs that barely covered their bills. I heard through Paris, who'd become a friend after our mutual divorces, bonding over shared experience, that they were engaged. Planning a small wedding at City Hall, nothing fancy. No money for fancy. Emma asked me once, during one of our bedtime conversations, if I was sad that Mommy was marrying Howard. No, sweetheart, I told her honestly, brushing her hair back from her forehead. I'm not sad. Mommy made her choice, and now she has to live with it. That's how life works. We all make choices, and those choices have consequences. Do you still love Mommy? I thought about that carefully, wanting to be honest but age-appropriate. I love the person I thought she was, but that person doesn't exist anymore. The woman I married wouldn't have done what she did. So no, I don't love who she is now. But I'll always be grateful that she gave me you and Jacob. Emma seemed to accept this answer, rolling over to hug her stuffed elephant. As for me, I eventually started dating again after about a year and a half. Nothing serious yet, but I was open to the possibility. I'd learned that I was stronger than I thought, that I could handle betrayal and come out the other side. I'd learned that revenge didn't have to be dramatic or explosive. Sometimes it was just letting people face the natural consequences of their actions while you built something better. Vivian had wanted excitement, attention, something different from our stable, predictable life. She got it. She got Howard, got the passionate affair that became a struggling relationship built on lies and betrayal. She lost her business, her home, her reputation, and primary custody of her kids. She lost the respect of her community and the stability she'd once taken for granted. I got the life we'd built together minus her. I got our apartment, my kids, my growing career, and my self-respect. I moved on while she struggled with the choices she'd made. I built a life I was proud of, raised my children in a home full of honesty and love. People sometimes ask me if I regret how I handled things, if I wish I'd tried to work it out, gone to counseling, given her another chance. If I'd been too harsh, too unforgiving. The answer is no. Not for a second. You can't rebuild trust that's been shattered so completely. You can't unsee what I saw, unknow what I learned. And I didn't want to spend the rest of my life wondering if she was really at the bakery, or if there was another Howard somewhere. The last time I saw Vivian was at Jacob's 7th birthday party at a local park. It was a beautiful spring day, and I'd rented out a pavilion and invited all his friends from school. She came for the hour we'd agreed upon, brought a small gift she clearly couldn't afford, a coloring book and crayons from the dollar store, and watched from the sidelines as our son played with his friends in the life I'd built for them. She looked out of place, uncomfortable, hovering at the edges. As she was leaving, she stopped by me. I was cleaning up cups and plates. Thank you for letting me come. For including me. He's your son. You have that right. I'm not trying to erase you from their lives. Paul, do you think you'll ever forgive me? Really forgive me? I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in months. She wasn't the woman I'd married anymore. That woman had been confident, vibrant, full of dreams. The confidence was gone, replaced by something tired and defeated. But she'd made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. I already have, I told her, and I meant it. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean letting you back into my life beyond what's necessary for the kids. You chose Howard. You chose that life over the one we had. Now live it. Deal with the consequences of your choices like an adult. She nodded, tears in her eyes, and left. I watched her walk to the old car she shared with Howard, watched her sit in the driver's seat for a moment before starting it, and felt nothing but relief that she was no longer my problem, no longer my responsibility. That evening, after the party was over and the kids were asleep, exhausted from sugar and excitement, I sat on my balcony with a beer, looking out over Grand Rapids as the sun set. The autumn leaves had given way to spring blooms, a full cycle of seasons since that October day when everything changed. 7 years of marriage, gone in an instant. But also, 7 years of lessons learned about trust, about integrity, about what I would and wouldn't accept in my life. I'd loved Vivian. I'd trusted her completely, given her everything I had. And she'd betrayed that in the worst way possible, thrown it away for excitement and attention. But I'd survived. More than that, I'd thrived in ways I never expected. My consulting business was booming. I'd had to turn away clients because I was at capacity. My kids were happy and healthy, doing well in school, adjusted to their new normal. I had my freedom, my dignity, and a future full of possibilities. I had friends who respected me and family who supported me. I had a life I'd built on honesty and hard work. Vivian had Howard, mounting debts, and the knowledge that she'd destroyed everything, her marriage, her business, her reputation, for a relationship that would forever be marked by how it started, built on lies and betrayal. People say that living well is the best revenge. They're right. But sometimes, just standing back and watching people face the consequences of their own actions while you build a better life without them is equally satisfying. I didn't have to do anything to hurt Vivian. She'd hurt herself through her choices, and the world had responded accordingly. I finished my beer and went inside, checking on the kids one more time before heading to bed. Tomorrow, I had a meeting with a new client in the morning, then picking up the kids from school, then dinner and homework and bedtime stories. The simple, stable life that Vivian had thrown away, that she decided wasn't enough for her. And as I fell asleep that night, I realized I'd never been happier, never been more at peace with who I was and the life I'd created. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.